Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Jon Mason. Jon Mason is a transformational catalyst in Littlehampton in the UK, and you can find out more about Jon Mason at jonmason.net. Welcome, Jon Mason.
Yeah, hello. I'm glad to be here today. Wonderful.
Now, Jon Mason, in your work as a transformational catalyst, you talk about the concept of resonance. What is the concept of resonance that you use in your healing work?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So let's look at it first from everybody's experience of resonance. You go into a room where there's maybe a party, and you notice straight away there's a little group of people chatting, and you're either drawn to them, oh, no, I don't want to go there, or, oh, I'll go there. Yeah, you notice that? Well, we are noticing resonance straight away. As individuals, we notice resonance. We know, is this the sort of group I want to talk with? We've not even communicated with them. We've not even said anything, but we just know who we're drawn to. That's natural resonance. That's what resonance is. Now, the way I work is, if anyone's ever been to music where there's, I think the word is a cappella. Is it a cappella where?
A cappella, yes.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, it's so people are singing without any instruments. And it's very common when they start. These are professional musicians. What do? The first thing they do is, you'll often notice they'll use a tuning fork, and they'll bang the tuning fork, and they'll go, right, that's an A, or that's a C. And what that does, it reminds them, that's all it does. It reminds each one of them, oh yeah, that's A, that's what it sounds like. They're professional musicians. They know exactly what it should be. But even in these concerts, they give them a note to get them, just to remind them where we're at. And that's what I do in my work, is I set a frequency to remind people where they can be, not where they're at, but what have they forgotten about? What have they missed? Where are they not living life to the full? In other words, they've come off their frequency, and all I'm doing is ping, reminding them, oh, hi guys, this is where you can be. Why not be here? This is a much nicer place. Do you remember this? And somewhere in the cells of their body, they will of course remember it. It's natural. It's not something that we don't have. We all have wonderful abilities, but we somehow forget them, or they're covered up by life. And my job is to do that little ping to remind them. That's what resonance is, and that's how I work.
Now, here at the Natural Healing Show, we have interviewed a number of experts in sound healing, and the way they talk about resonance, and the way a lot of homeopaths talk about resonance, is coming into energetic harmony. So the example that you gave is, if you go to a party, you go, I'm not really sure I'm with that vibe, but I like the vibe of these other people. And wherever we are, we come into energetic resonance with the environment. So that's also one of the big basic principles of feng shui, is you alter your environment in order to raise your own vibration. And flower essences are vibrational remedies, and homeopathy is vibrational remedies, right? And resonance is, my understanding is, resonance is happening all the time. So, people talk about, you've got to be careful about the 5 people that you spend the most time with, because you're going to come into harmony with them. So if
Exactly.
So if you're spending time with people who care about their health, and they pray and meditate and practice yoga and Tai Chi, and they eat well, probably pretty soon you're going to start doing those things too. You're going to catch the vibe, right? Versus if you're living with people who are, not living healthy, you're going to catch that vibe also. Now, Jon Mason, what is the resonance you feel that we as a global family are going through as a result of the coronavirus pandemic?
Wow. That's a great question. That's an absolutely brilliant question. When I tune into that resonance, it's a combination. It's a combination of fear and optimism. And that's really strange. You would think, well, how can the two run together? Fear and optimism. And I've tuned into this quite a lot. And recently I had a very quiet meditation. In that meditation, what I saw was mushrooms popping up everywhere. I thought, this is really weird. What does this mean? Mushroom here, pop, 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 pop. And I realized it's people waking up. It's people waking up to who they are. So that's the resonance that people like yourself, people like myself, people are open, are feeling. They're feeling an optimism, a wave of optimism of, wow, maybe Auntie Jill's going to wake up. Uncle Joe might wake up. I'm not by myself, because that's one of the biggest issues of, if you like, being alternative. You feel we do have a family, yes, but often our friends and family that are closest to us have no idea what's going on for us. And here's the optimism that people are waking up. So that's the wonderful thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. They're waking up all over the place. And I keep getting that more and more and more. And those of us that are semi-awake will awaken even more. So that's lovely. So that's the optimism. And we're fearful. Some of the society is fearful that they've no idea where they're going to end up. So that's divided into two. There's fear, and the more uncentered somebody is, the more uncertain they are about their life, the more fearful the current situation will make them. The more centered, the more certain you are about your life, the more optimism just flows through you. It just flows through you. Wherever you go, you're going to bring it with you. So I think what's happening at the moment is a division. And you can choose, where do you want to be? Do we want to live in fear, or do we want to love optimism? And yeah, so that's partly how I see it.
So Jon Mason, when you talk about people waking up, what do you mean by waking up?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. Yeah. The first step of waking up, the way I see it, is to realize that we're more than this body. That our happiness doesn't come from outside, but it comes from inside. There's a very common theme that we've been educated with forever, and that is, and I call it, I'll be happy when. Mm-hmm. I'll be happy when I have that car. I'll be happy when I have that promotion. I'll be happy when I get married or I have the child. And it's always when. It's not, I'll be happy now. It'll be, so we're always chasing this goal. And that's what we've been trained to do. And when people wake up, they suddenly realize that's not true. Happiness is here and now, or not at all. And so they open, and in that opening, they realize that they're a truly spiritual being having a human experience. And different people open in different ways. And but we'll all open slowly to the same thing, to realize that we are beautiful spiritual beings having this human experience.
And, Jon Mason, as a medical intuitive healer, I agree with you that waking up means awakening to your soul, to who you are, right? We have a body. You are a soul, but you have a body. And part of, for me, waking up also is about really understanding your soul purpose and living your purpose. Because what I find when I'm working with my clients at this time, you can either go into panic or you can go into purpose. And for me personally, when I stay in my purpose in this lifetime is healing. So when I stay in my purpose, I'm in my passion, I'm in my happiness, I'm in my drive, I'm in my motivation, I'm in my reason for getting out of bed every morning, right? And when you stay in your purpose, which by the way has nothing to do with what you do for a living, because when you're in your soul purpose, you can do your soul purpose just by being you, right? When you stay in your purpose, I find that really helps to stay out of the chaos. Because
I do agree with you. And one of the things that's happening at the moment is people definitely being awakened. And the question they're coming up with is, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? Yeah. So that's a big awakening too. And yes, once you align with that purpose, life is very much more straightforward. But for a lot of people, and this is also the thing that's happening, is awakening. As people awaken, almost the first thing they come up with is, what's my purpose? What should I be doing here? Okay, I really don't feel it. And our job is to help guide them towards it. That's what we do. That's what we're here to help them do. We found our purpose, and part of our job is to make sure that they don't miss theirs.
Right. In my most recent book, my 10th book, Reading the Soul, I talk about how you can find your soul purpose. And one of the ways you can know you're in your purpose is when you're in your joy, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So what are some of the clues for our audience when they'll know they're in their purpose?
The clues really are that it's easy. It just feels easy. Everything you do feels easy. It feels like the hand of God supporting you. It may not make any logical sense. And that's where you have to be very careful of the thoughts. The thoughts may say, well, this is crazy. I want to become a bus driver. Yeah. And yet, every cell of your body is saying, yeah, that's really what you want to do. And it may seem crazy, and your friends may think you're crazy. But that quiet voice inside, so that's it. It's quiet, it's definite, and despite the distractions of your thinking, you know it's right. That's the general thing. And it is easy, and elicits joy even when you think about it, it elicits joy. That's purpose.
And Jon Mason, we started this interview talking about resonance, because also I feel that when you are in your soul purpose, you're in a high vibrational state, right? You're in a flow state. Like you said, it is easy. Now, Jon Mason, over the past week, scientists who measure the frequency of the planet have noticed huge changes. There's something called Schumann resonance, which is the basic frequency of the Earth. So we're talking about resonance. Typically, the Schumann resonance is a little below 8 hertz. I believe it's like 7.83 hertz. And in recent weeks, for example, April 18th, 2020, the Earth's frequency has gone as high as 110 hertz, which brings people into a gamma state, but also where humans are able to download higher consciousness information. So because the Earth literally sets the resonance for humanity, because we humans simply live on the planet, how are all these changes in frequency affecting us?
Great, that's a great question. As I said before, the first thing that's happening is people are popping up, they're opening. They're becoming, people are open, even opening any more and more, and their friends will start to open. They will start to awaken as well. And a couple of things will happen too. The first thing is people will see which parts of their life are in alignment and what's not in alignment. And almost the first thing is we start to gain clarity. People start to gain clarity of what they don't want. I don't want this anymore. I don't want that in my life anymore. And that is a strange thing that we start awakening with, I don't want. But that's often what will happen. The first thing people will notice, I don't want to live like this anymore. And at this time, we've had many, many people for tens of years thinking, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to live on this planet like this anymore. And bingo, we're now having a change, and more people are thinking the same thing. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't know which way to go. I don't know what to do, but I know I don't want X, Y, Z, as we say in English.
Right. And, you know, Abraham Hicks, the spiritual teacher, they talk about the concept of contrast. Because as you said, you may not know what you do want, but you are pretty sure about what you don't want, right? Yeah.
And that's it, is that the first step is you can define what you don't want. And that is wonderful, because that allows you to say, okay, well, I don't want this. I definitely don't want this. And then from there, we step to the next step and say, but I think I want this. And then I think I want this. So it's a slow process of learning what it is that you really do want. But more and more at the moment, people are opening and awakening. And as they do so, the first thing they're going to say is, I don't want this anymore. Whatever it is in their life they don't want. Their relationship, their job, their commute, whatever it might be.
As a medical intuitive healer, what I feel about this period of time that's very challenging that we're all going through is that it's putting us all into chaos. Now, there was a gentleman by the name of Elio Prigogine, and he won the Nobel Prize for his chaos theory. And in a nutshell, chaos theory states that in order to reorganize at a higher level, you have to go into chaos. So we're talking about resonance, and we're noticing that literally the heartbeat of the earth is not in its normal rhythm. So instead of being below 8 hertz, it goes to 110 hertz. And there's these massive shifts in the frequency of the earth that we're all feeling and sensing, whether or not we understand what's going on. So as a medical intuitive healer, I feel that this is putting us all into a state of chaos. And when you think about chaos from a physics point of view, it's like shaking something up so that we can reorganize at a higher level. And I don't think at this moment we have a clear picture of what that is, about where we're going, right? But we do know things are in chaos. And, you know, sometimes when our lives go into chaos, you know, our first reaction can be fear and panic, like, oh my God, things are not the way they were. But when you understand chaos theory, that in order to reorganize at a higher level, you have to go through this chaos, then you can just tell yourself, I'm reorganizing at a higher level, right? I'm literally reorganizing. And, you know, when you think about what's being reorganized, you know, we have challenges to our health, obviously with the coronavirus. We have challenges with our money. We have challenges for the way we're working because, you know, I think they say a third of the planet is in quarantine. We have challenges for our children because they're not able to go to school. And there's challenges to our relationships because so many of us have had to go into isolation. So as someone who works with resonance, what is your feeling about this period of chaos that we're going through?
Great. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful question. Yeah. Yeah. So I was basically brought up as a scientist. So I think in terms of science. And one of the things I find the most useful is a thing called a normal distribution curve, or a bell curve. And that describes a lot about human experience and human nature. And that is just like a bell, like this. So in other words, if you were measuring, you went down to the street and you decided to measure the height of men, you'd find there was a few dwarfs, a few giants, but the average would be around a certain height of probably 5'5" or 5'6". So that's what a bell curve is. And a bell curve beautifully describes human experience. So at the moment, you're going to find at one end of the bell curve, that little narrow end, there's going to be people who love this. They are going to be thriving. They are going to be in heaven. At the other end of this bell curve, there's going to be people who have every single challenge that you've listed, everything, and magnified to a level which even difficult to describe, even difficult to even think about. But the vast majority of us are somewhere in the middle. We're somewhere in the middle, and we have those challenges. And it is a difficult time. It's a very difficult time. And how do we get through it? In a nutshell, the first thing we got to do is we got to look to ourselves. What's it triggering in us? What is it triggering in us? What's the thing that we feel more than anything else? And I'd like to relay a personal experience that happened to me right at the beginning of this. So I normally don't go shopping till late in the day. And at the beginning of this, I decided to go to the supermarket about 6 o'clock in the evening. And what happened was all the shelves were empty. Shelf after shelf after shelf of empty. I'd seen it in some of the TV things, but I'd not seen it here. And I managed to get something and we went home. And at home, I started shaking. And the reaction was really, really ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I was almost weeping and shaking. And I thought, this is crazy. You know, we're going to live. Okay. And yet I sat down and got quiet. And it took me back to a life in Ireland. My ancestors were living through the potato famine in Ireland. And it was just as if I was there. Just as if I was there. So that is what needed healing within me. And lucky I was able to access it. So for a lot of people out there, what's happening is, whatever's happened with their ancestral energies, they're going to need to heal that. So it might be finance. Maybe a father or grandfather or great-great-grandfather had financial problems or health problems or education problems. And those ancestral energies are going to come pouring through to be healed, to be cleared. That's how I see it.
You know, as a medical intuitive healer, I'm in total agreement with you in that I think that with this challenging time that we're going through, this period of actual chaos, where literally the whole world is reorganizing, is going to pull up different thoughts, emotions, and cellular experiences and soul level experiences and soul wounds. And as you explained in your example, I think a lot of us, I mean, if you think about, you know, what we have gone through as a human race, we've gone through starvation, we've gone through war, we've gone through slavery, right? We've gone through periods of extreme loneliness and isolation. And, you know, what we're going through now is pulling up that cellular memory of these extreme hardships. But, you know, we don't have to stay there, right? Now, Jon Mason, you've talked about a purity wave coming through. what is your understanding of what this purity wave is and how these planetary shifts affect what we're all going through?
Yeah, I think it's to do with planetary alignment and planetary shifts, and the astrology of the moment is telling us we've got some big changes, and these big changes have been coming right away across the planet. Many people have predicted this for years. It's not something that's unusual. We didn't know the format. We didn't know how it was going to come, but we knew some change was going to come. We knew some restructuring energy was coming to the planet. And that, if you like, wave comes through in an astrological way. The astrology is telling us the planets are moving in such a way. This is going to change the energy. This is going to change the way you think. This is going to change the way people act in groups. And that's exactly what's happened. We didn't know how it was going to come, but one, we knew it had to come, and two, we now know the process has started. The process has definitely started. It's unprecedented that there's this quietness, maybe enforced, but it's there. And it may be almost worldwide, where the buzz has slowed down, the noise has slowed down, the pollution has slowed down. We may be fighting it inside, but we can't fight the reality of actually the experience.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying, because, you can drive through downtown Atlanta at what would be rush hour, and there's no traffic. So there is this quiet, and I agree with you that it is about getting back in alignment. I did a session, I guess, a week ago with a client, and, you talk about alignment, and she'd been working at a quick weight loss center, and she didn't believe in the program. She felt that it was training people to abuse their bodies. And we're going through the session, and she's describing how she's working. She's sitting in this tiny little room. Her boss comes in. Everybody's using the same pens. And then different members of the public are coming in and out of this tiny room without even cleaning the room. And I said, it's not even safe for you. I said, you know very well that you're completely out of alignment with this. It's not what you believe. You don't believe it. You wouldn't do it yourself. You wouldn't recommend it. So she had to change. So I think this chaos that we're experiencing with these massive planetary fluctuations in the rhythm of the earth are indeed pulling up and asking us to inquire within, where am I not in harmony with myself? Where am I not in harmony with my soul? And again, even if you don't know your soul purpose, you can really pay attention to what your soul is longing to do, right? In my book, Reading the Soul, I talk about your soul longing. And then again, that's what you would be doing if money was no object, right? It's what you would spend the rest of your life doing if you knew you would be successful.
Yeah.
So Jon Mason, with all this change, one of the things that we know, there's something called the Holmes and Race stress scale. You can look it up on the internet. And I strongly encourage everyone, if you're listening to this broadcast, go look up the Holmes and Race stress scale. And it's a scientific measurement, so you can tell at any given time how stressed you are. Anytime your score goes over 300, then you're likely to experience health challenges. So here we are at the Natural Healing Show. We're encouraging people to heal naturally. Well, part of what you want to do is really notice, how much change am I going through? How much stress have I gone through in the past 12 months? And then if you've gone through a lot of change, then you need to really increase your self-care. But as I said, we've had changes in our health, our money, the way we work, our relationships with quarantine, and our children's education. How do you feel we can stay sane during these changes?
Okay, yeah, that's a very difficult question. Yeah, it's very difficult. As I said before, some of us are going to find it really easy. Some of us are going to find it incredibly easy. Others are going to find it incredibly difficult. That's the way it is. The number of things we can do. The first thing we can do is not get too wrapped up in what the media is trying to tell us. In our house, we don't watch TV. We haven't watched TV for years. We don't watch the TV. We don't read the papers. We don't get magazines. We don't have a radio. That's a good start. That's a good start, because it used to be the idea of the media was to inform you. And it seems to me the media's now play is to pull you in, to hype you. So that's my first thing, is be very skeptical about any media you engage in. It will make a big difference. It will make a big difference. The second thing is, and really important, to bring your stress level down, you have to realize where you're at. What are you feeling? What emotions are you feeling? What are you actually feeling? And every emotion, as you know, every emotion will be brought about by what are you thinking? The thinking creates the feeling. Whatever you're thinking about, that's creating that feeling. And so if you're feeling anxious, what's the thought behind it? And here's the real key, the key that I see it. And this is something everybody should become aware of. Every thought creates your feeling. So whatever the thought is, that's what's creating the feeling. It's not the external circumstances. It's not the finance. It's not what's going on in the world. It's not what's going on in your life. It's what your thoughts are about this world. That's what's creating it. And one of the things I try to guide people in is to understand there's two types of thinking, two types of thought. There's thoughts that belong to you, and there's thoughts that don't belong to you. And the ones that belong to you are smooth and soft and have a nice feeling inside. And those that don't belong to you don't fit into that category. And most of the time, particularly at the moment, we are aligning with thoughts that come from our parents, our colleagues, society, the media, our teachers. They don't come from our heart, because thought that comes from our heart has a really soft feeling. So what I like to do is give people permission not to believe the thoughts that don't create good feeling in the body. Take permission, give yourself permission, because that is going to be the biggest thing you can do to reducing your stress level. Give yourself permission. These aren't my thoughts. They don't belong to me. And the moment you get quiet, the more you realize which thoughts do belong to you. They feel soft. They feel easy. They're creative. There's no panic. And any thought that has rush, panic, fear, upset, they're not yours. They belong to somebody else. Maybe your parents gave them down to you. Maybe your partner gave them to you. Maybe your school teacher. Maybe the media. But they're not yours. And that's one of the biggest things we can do, because stress increases cortisol in the system. It just massively increases cortisol. And what does cortisol do? It wrecks our immune response. So it's really crucial that we keep our stress level down. And one of the ways we can do that, apart from all the breathing and the meditation and all that stuff, is to be aware of what we're thinking. We can't always change it, but we can know, does this belong to me? Does it feel good? No, it's not mine.
Great observations. And for our audience, I want to point out that during this time, I'm giving away one of my 10 books for free. If you send me an email, Catherine@CatherineCarrigan.com, I will send you a free copy of my book, The Little Book of Breath Work, which includes breathing exercises, affirmations, and hand mudras. It's going to cut your anxiety by half. It's going to improve your lung function should you experience respiratory distress. And all you've got to do is send me an email at Catherine@CatherineCarrigan.com, and I'll send you a copy. Now, from my perspective, one of the ways that we can stay sane through all these changes, there's really two things. One of them, I think it's very important that we all have a felt sense of what does your home frequency feel like. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you just had a wonderful yoga practice and it's the end of yoga and you're lying there in Shavasana and you're feeling relaxed. That's your home frequency. Or you wake up in the morning, you look out the window, it's a beautiful day, and you notice you feel calm, happy, and relaxed. That's your home frequency. And when you know how your home frequency feels, anytime your energy shifts into anything other than that, you go into the fear or the panic or the chaos, then you know you're not in your own energy. And, just sometimes the first step is to realize, wait a minute, that's not how I usually feel. I don't usually feel tightness in my chest. I don't usually feel, like I'm over adrenalized and I'm racing around. So get a felt sense of your home frequency. And you can do that by practicing periods of quiet during the day, meditation for sure. And, Jon Mason talked about asking yourself, what's your story? And as a medical intuitive healer, one of the things I get my clients to do is to rewrite your story. So maybe right now, one of the things you can do to stay out of the chaos is to write your story about what's happening, right? About your health, about your money, about your family, your job, etc. You write it all down, be as truthful as possible, and then go back and reread it. And anytime you notice that your own story is bringing up negative emotions, then I encourage you to rewrite that story. Now, the caveat is when you rewrite it, you want it to remain a true story, right? So maybe it's, I lost my job or, somebody I love got sick. Well, you rewrite the story so that it's true, but you maybe write it from your soul's perspective. Like, I knew I hated that job. I knew I didn't want to be there. I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my life, working in that manner. So the point is you keep rewriting that story until when you read it and you tell it to yourself, all that comes up for you is peace and love. And it may take you a while. You may have to rewrite your story multiple times or every day until you find the soul wisdom in what's happening. But it's the story that you're telling yourself that's bringing up all these feelings. Now, Jon Mason, you do a process called frequency realignment. What is that process? How does that work? And how can we realign our frequency during these times of huge planetary changes?
Great. Okay. So this is a technique that I use and have developed over a number of years. And the idea is to bring you into alignment, just to bring you into alignment. And what we could do is just show you slowly or just in a couple of minutes how you could not fully do this, but start to do this process at home yourselves. Because normally when I've worked with somebody, I remind them of the frequency that they're depleted in. So if they're having problems with relationships, I work on a frequency of what does a really good relationship feel like? And I run that frequency myself very strongly. Their system starts to copy it. And then when they go home or when they're at home, they can still practice what we've done together, just reminding themselves, what does that frequency feel like? Not what's the experience of a good relationship, but what's the frequency like? And that's what I do. And anyone can even just follow these simple steps now, very simply, in these last few minutes together. Normally I ask people to sit down, be quiet, close the eyes, ground themselves. Ground themselves. Just imagine in their mind's eye, they were growing roots out their feet into the earth, 200 feet into the earth, really deep roots into the earth, energetic roots, grounding themselves, making themselves more solid with the planet. And then as they breathe in and breathe out, become aware of the energy coming in the top of your head. And you'll notice some of the strands of energy coming in the top of your head are a different color. They're a different quality. They're not yours. They're absolutely not yours. There's things that you've developed, you've borrowed, but they're not yours. And what we can do when we're quiet and our mind's eye and we become aware of these strands of energy, we're able to pull them out. Just in our mind's eye, just pull them to one side, put them an arm's length away from you and drop them deep into the ground. And then start to feel what it's like having your pure frequency. They will come back. Of course they'll come back because we've used them, adopted frequencies and habits over years. But the more we pull them away, the more we get used to feeling free, a sense of freedom inside. Freedom from thoughts that are not ours, emotions that are not ours. And that's something that people can do very quickly. It takes a couple of minutes, ground their feet, close their eyes. Just imagine that energy coming through their system. And those energy lines that don't belong to them, they can pull them in their mind's eye out and move them outside their field for a while. And they'll get a fresh feeling. It's a very quick, very effective way of getting a fresh feeling and opening a little bit more to who you are without the habits and without the patterns.
Right. And that's what I was talking about being aware of what your own home frequency feels like. So
yes.
that you go into resonance with the fear, the panic, and the chaos, you can go, wait a minute, that's not me. That's not how I usually feel. That's not my energy, right?
Yeah.
So
that's it. So the way you do it or the way I do it seems to be we're trying to get the same result. Let's see what we're like without everybody else's thought, without everybody else's interference. And that's what's happening, that people want to know now. They want to know, what am I like without all the other stuff?
Absolutely. And, my observation as a medical intuitive healer is once you become aware and have a felt sense of your own home frequency, then when you go into these other energies, anger, fear, chaos, and you go, wait a minute, that's not me, that you can literally get rid of at least 50% of it. And sometimes we try and figure it out, like, where did that come from? We try and understand. Just realize you don't even have to understand. Just say, that's not me. That's not my energy. That's not mine. I can just let it go, right?
Yeah, so as I said, if you talked about energy, I talk about thinking. It's not my thoughts, and therefore it's not my emotion. It doesn't belong to me. It's the same principle. Yeah, we can take it from any angle you like, but it's basically, I want to feel me. I want to feel free.
Yes. Now, Jon Mason, when coronavirus has finally passed, hopefully sooner rather than later, how do you think our world will be different?
Great. That's a lovely question. That's a lovely question. It really is. And I'm going to answer that in two parts if I can. The first thing is I want to relate an experience of mine, which is very much in line with the question. And then I want to talk about how I see our society. So when I was in my 20s, I went off and I paid to go on a 6-month retreat. That was meditating hours a day, a little bit of yoga, vegetarian food, no telephone, no media, no one allowed out. You could only go out for a walk once a day with one other person. For 6 months we did this. 6 months.
Sounds like quarantine.
It is exactly like quarantine, but we did it. I paid to do it. I offered to do it. I wanted to do it because I had a goal. My goal was I thought it would lead me towards whatever enlightenment meant at the time. For 6 months, we did this. And it's so similar to the quarantine, you can't believe it. So when eventually I did come out after 6 months, no cars, no driving, no going to the shops, no sports, no TV, no radio, no papers, and no idea what's going on. No socializing, just meditating and walking once a day with one other person. So at the end of that, came out into the world, everything was so fast. It was, oh God, the cars are moving. Oh God, this is far too fast for me. Oh, there's too much noise. People are talking. And yet the one thing I got from it is the silence that we created inside never, ever went away. The silence inside never disappeared. So we'd created in that time, unknowingly, a solid silence. And I feel that's what will happen. We don't see at the end coming, but when it does come, we don't realize what we're doing at the moment as a humanity is we're creating a silence inside. When we get to the end of this, we'll go, oh, wow, we're different. We feel different. We do feel different. And I can see that what's going to happen is it's going to divide into two. There's going to be a lot of people opening and noticing that silence and noticing a different way of living. I don't want to live that way anymore. I'm going to live differently. That's the area that's going to grow. And unfortunately, I still think there's going to be a group of people who'll be trying to hold on to the old way. You fix me. No, you. I give my power to you. I give my power to you. Yes, you can fix me. And that's the way some of society will go and stay and get more solid. And the other side will become more open. And their difference is, please help me help myself. That's where I think we're going. And that area is going to be growing. And people have got so used to a change inside that when they are let free, there's going to be a wonderful awakening, a wonderful opening. Beautiful. It's beautiful.
You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can find out even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been Jon Mason of jonmason.net, transformational catalyst. And remember, when you take the time to become aware of your own home frequency and the quiet and peace inside yourself, then you can stay out of the chaos and stay sane during coronavirus pandemic as we all go through this. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.